Can I just do one thing before we start with the questions? I just want to give a shout out to David Gettleman in New York. We all know he's battling cancer right now. He's a real good friend of mine. Certainly been a part of the National Football League for a long time. So a lot of people here certainly know him within the Raiders organization, and we're certainly pulling for him in his fight right now. So apologize for letting me do that, but thank you very much. To your question about how we evaluate the kickers right now, it's just going to be an ongoing process. We've been rotating days throughout the majority of the camp, and then we've actually kicked them on the same day once before, and we were going to do that a little bit tomorrow. We'll see how that goes. So, but it's been a good competition. Giorgio's been in the league a while, bounced himself around, and really competed his butt off. And then, the young guy's got a lot of talent, and he just hasn't played a lot of football, so it should be a good competition.
Why is that an effective approach for you guys as coaches, just to give each guy a day to focus on handling all the reps?
Well, it's kind of advantageous to us because we can have guys kick every single day. If we went on the same day, then that next day we'd have to have off from field goal. So it's a little bit of advantage for us protection-wise, but for them, they also can gauge their rest period every other day, and they can do the same thing throughout the summer. We'd like to try to do the same thing throughout training camp. It's kind of the same way we would do it during the season. We don't kick 2 days in a row during the season, so we try to keep the same schedule during the training camp.
Obviously, you guys track how your kickers are doing thus far, but does it really pick up in terms of the evaluation in preseason, or is that going to have a huge determination, or would you like to know before then who your kicker is?
No, I think we're going to, I believe we'll go into some of the preseason games for sure and give them both an opportunity to kick in game-like situations. We'll try to create as many situations in practice as we possibly can, certainly when we get to pads. So I think it's a process, and everything matters. We do a big indie set. Giorgio today had 11 kicks before he got over to the team 6 kicks, and he made all 11. I think he made all 6. We came back at the end, and he missed those last 2, but yesterday they were 2 big ones, just like Eddie kicked, and Eddie made one of the 2. So right now they're nip and tuck. When one guy misses 2, the other guy makes them all. The next day, that guy misses 2, and the next guy makes them all. So it's just one of the deals.
Is it a help for you when you're trying to implement your special teams philosophy and an attitude to what you like to do when you have guys like Keith Smith and Kyle Wilbur, guys that you've worked with to kind of help instill what you like to do? Have those guys here?
Yeah, I think it's a big help. And the magic word that you just said for me is attitude. We have conversations about that constantly in our room, and I think attitude is really the main thing for any player, certainly for guys that want to be involved in special teams. And, you mentioned 2 guys that have been in my system before, or our system before, along with, Dwayne and Switzer and Gilchrist and Sharice Wright as well. So then my assistant, Byron Storer, played in this system in Tampa years ago and has been coaching with me before in Tampa, in San Diego, and now here. So those guys have been through the system, so there are other resources that the players that have been here or the new ones that we acquired, they can also go to those guys and get some hands-on advice about actually how it's done and guys that have done it. So it's been a big help to us.
Byron's kind of had an interesting coaching career in that the past few years he's been out of it a little bit. He obviously was with you in San Diego when you had your choice for an assistant. Maybe just detail a little bit about why he was the guy to bring back into coaching.
Great question about Byron. Byron actually played for us. He was he's from Modesto, and he was a walk-on at Cal, became a starter, and played in the same backfield with Marshawn. And he was a free agent with us in Tampa and became our starting fullback, and then went through multiple knee injuries and surgeries twice, and was going to kind of get out and go to business school and all that. And I talked him into staying and starting coaching, breaking down film for us. And he's actually the guy. I didn't have an assistant ever, and he's the guy. I wasn't a computer guy, and I didn't type anything. I did everything handwritten, and we won a Super Bowl with no computer pictures and all handwritten words. And he's the guy that kind of got on the computer and redrew everything that I had by hand onto the computer and did all the typing, and all the words that I had written on paper, he put them to computer font and those things. And so he kind of revamped the entire playbook and learned how to coach, and the system that he was involved in with us was kind of a natural for him to go on the grass. And when I went to San Diego, I couldn't bring him the first year. They wouldn't let him out of his contract. And so I got him the second year. And I left after the second year and went to Dallas, and they wouldn't let him out of his contract in San Diego to come to Dallas. Then the next year, his dad kind of got a little bit under the weather, and they were starting a new division for the their business, the store bus line in San Francisco. So he got out and to kind of go work and help his dad. Really only planned to do it for 2 years and ended up staying for 4. And this opportunity got to be where I could get him back, and he was ready to leave, and the business kind of got put back in position where his dad could run it again, and I had a chance to get him, and I got him as soon as I could. So he's a brilliant guy. He's unbelievable with players, and he's been in the system. So I'm real excited to have him back.
Is that business background you mentioned show up in coaching, be it skills like organization or otherwise?
Well, I think his work that he did with his dad's company, dealing with people every day, and kind of working his way from the bottom to kind of managing the office, I think you can see a big difference in him, how he's dealing with people and how he's managing things. But for me, on the computer and the drawings, and he's been outstanding. And then, you look at him, I nicknamed him in Tampa Opie. Everybody remembers RFD and Mayberry, and he had that baby face, but underneath that baby face, he puts the helmet on. He's got some demons in there. You can ask Derek Brooks and Cato June and those guys. He's a heck of a player, real physical, really bright, and I'm excited to have him here.
Eddie really hasn't been kicking footballs for all that long in his life. How are his mechanics, and how much can you work with a kicker's mechanics and without making him too uncomfortable in what he's doing?
Yeah, great question. The first part of that is you're right. He hasn't kicked a lot of footballs, but he's kicked a lot of soccer balls. And, my experience being around those guys, they kind of know how to kick. And I never proclaimed to be a kicking coach in any way, shape, or form, so I'm not going to try to change anyone's kicking style or motion, just like I would not change anyone's throwing motion if I was coaching quarterbacks. But what we try to do is we do a lot of film work, and then we do a lot of meeting time, and in that meeting time, they can explain to us what's good about their kick, and then when it's bad, why it's bad and what's bad. So I can learn a lot about them and help them in the parts that are good, and have coaching points about the parts that are bad, and not be in position to change them or to break them down and to rebuild them up into some kind of super kicker. So I'm really learning a lot more about Giorgio, about what he thinks is good and bad, and a lot more about Eddie, what they think are good and bad. And that's really been my approach all through coaching the National Football League. And I've been around a lot of good kickers, guys I've learned a lot from. I've learned a lot from Martine. I've learned a lot certainly from Dan Bailey and Nate Keating and Nick Novak. I've been fortunate to be around a lot of those good players, and I've showed those guys tape of some of those players, and they can pull the things out that they think can help them and use them in their style. But we're not going to try to change anyone. We're going to try to let them coach us a little bit, and then I can help them on the things that are good and bad according to what they're talking about. So.
Johnny obviously has familiarity holding for Eddie, holding for a right-footed kicker. How's he been working with a lefty on times, alternating days as well?
Johnny's been outstanding holding for both, and I've never really had that before. I haven't had a lefty and a righty before in a camp, and so he's been outstanding. When I went to work him out, I asked him to do both, and it was pretty natural for him. He's been a catcher his whole life in baseball, and so I think he has a little naturalness to him about getting in that kind of awkward position of put himself in a holder stance. But he's really worked hard at it. He's got over 400 reps just since he's been here on holding for both. So it just, I can't explain it. I thought there would be a big issue with it, but it's been an easy transition for him. He's really done a lot of work at it, and to some degree that has a little bit to do with the righty and lefty, who kicks on one day and who kicks on the other. So if the lefty's kicking on this particular day, we do all the beginning stuff of all of our work is done for the lefty. Then when he's done with his set, then we'll work the righty, and then we flip it when it's Eddie's turn, being the righty. So, but he's really done a great job, and it's the first time I've had the experience of being around a guy flipping and doing both. So.
What was it about Johnny, whether it was on his college tape or your workout interaction with him, that made you kind of think, that's the guy that I want?
To some degree, all the above. We thought he was really athletic on tape, and the thing he did really well was direct the ball. Did a good job of putting the ball outside the right numbers or putting the ball outside the left numbers, which is kind of a staple for our scheme, is to be able to direct the ball right and left. And we thought he did a really good job with that in college. He was really athletic, and he was really good hand to kick time. So catch to kick, you can kind of see the speed of his hands. I think a lot of that has to do with certainly his baseball background. But he's big, physical guy. Again, really athletic, really good hand time, and the ability to direct it. So we feel like there's a lot of natural ability there that certainly we're willing to work with.
Yeah, Ryan, so for you in Dallas. How much of a voice did you have in bringing him here, and what do you like about him as a returner?
Love Ryan, and my voice isn't very loud. It just goes to the right person, and or I should say the right two people. But we're excited to have Ryan, and he's in competition at receiver as well as the return game. He had a good rookie year. He's had some snaps, but he knows he's in a competition both at receiver and the return game, and we'll see how it plays out.
Were you surprised at all Eddie fell to you outside the draft? John said you guys were pretty close to drafting him in the late rounds.
It was certainly a conversation throughout the draft process, and so we had three kickers. We had three punters rated that we thought would get drafted. It went that way, and we had two kickers that we personally thought would get drafted, and one got drafted, and Eddie was still there. So we feel fortunate that we got a chance to get him, regardless of how we got him. But I know Coach talked about costing us a lot of money to get him, but we're just glad we got him. It's been a good competition.
Rich, on a personal note, you're a native New Yorker, wound up at Yankton College, following in Lyle Alzado's footsteps a little there?
In my office, there's one Raider picture up, and it's Lyle Alzado, and he's also a fellow New Yorker. And, a lot of people call it Misfit Island, and it's a closed school now, which some people might know. And my wife's from out there. She was born in Yankton, and she's from South Dakota, and it's actually a federal prison now, and she said it was always a prison, and I don't really believe that true. She said even when I was going there, she went to Mount Marty, which is another girls' nursing school right there in Yankton. But, we had the Lyle Alzado weight room in Yankton, and his old weights were there. They were tire rims with cement on both sides with a long bar, so they didn't have much in the weight facility before we got there, and so we kept all that stuff, and there was a big painting of him. But I became a Raider fan when Alzado came to the Raiders. So, certainly I have a lot of stories from Yankton when he was there, things he used to do when he went into Nebraska and all. But I'm fortunate to be in a building that, he walked around in and be with an organization that he helped bring a Super Bowl to.
You worked out Johnny, I assume, on the same day you worked out Eddie, same field, same time?
We did.
At any point during that, did you think to yourself, shoot, let's get them both?
Well, again, we all go through the process, and I got a chance to work out other kickers and a chance to work out other punters. And I think the thing that was impressive for us and I was there with some other coaches from some other teams. So the thing that was impressive about Eddie on the workout is a real windy day, and Eddie came out on the field, and we thought he was going to go through this long warm-up process. And, he kicked about 4 balls, and he looked and said, "Hey, does that one count? And, are you ready?" He goes, "Well, yeah, I'm ready." And he just started kicking. So it wasn't a long process, and again, maybe to the point of he hasn't played a lot of football, so he was ready to go in a hurry, and it was an impressive day working. I was there with 2 other coaches, and I think we all left impressed with both of those guys.
As you referenced, you've worked together with Gruden in the past. You guys have kept in touch over the years. Are you two, would you say, just in your core, similar as coaches, as people? You guys seem wired pretty similar way, just be an intensity on the field and maybe dial it back a little bit off.
What was that last part?
Maybe I don't know if you certainly dial it back a little bit off. He's pretty wired all the time, but are you guys kind of birds of the same feather?
I will say this: I love John Gruden, and it's kind of an emotional thing with me when it comes to Coach Gruden, because I feel like we've been together for 17 years. We share an early morning philosophy. My dad used to say every great man has one thing in common: he gets up early. And so we kind of share that. So we've had many conversations at 4:30 in the morning at the other 2 places that I've been since I left Tampa. And every time I went back to Tampa, my wife stayed there for a long time. I'd go to the FFCA, and I'd stop at Dunkin' Donuts and get him his coffee and go in there, and he'd put me on the board, and I got a chance to watch all the melts that he had. And so in my opinion, he's never left football, and I'm real fortunate to have a chance to be back with him on a daily basis and to be in the same room. And so are we alike some? I sure hope so. I sure hope I'm taking whatever great traits that David Cutcliffe had, and whatever great traits that Joe Morrison had, and whatever great traits that Tommy West had, and Norv Turner, and Jason Garrett, and whatever great ones that John Gruden has. I'm going to do everything I can to steal all that and try to make it part of my coaching philosophy and coaching personality, and see if I can become that good of a coach, So hope so.
Is John out here now, the same coach who you worked with in 2002 in Tampa Bay, has he mellowed or dialed it back at all, or is he the same guy?
No, I think he's the same, and maybe more zeal, because he's to some degree had a layoff of being on the grass, But I think people also forget that the first year he was out, he was coaching Deuce in high school. He was coaching the offensive line over at Deuce's high school, and my son was playing high school ball up the road, so we'd go over there and watch. He's never stopped doing what he's doing. He went to work at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning over at the FCA every single day and put all the tapes together. And although he's preparing for a Monday night game, he was really preparing to call the plays at the Monday night game. And he gave so much to all those people, so much to all that crew, that the ones that listened, I think they got better at being announcers as well. So I think he has, if not the same, certainly more zeal than he's ever had. He's not going to change who he is. He is who he is. And the best part about him is he's football, 24/7. And that's one of the main reasons I want to be around the guy, because I think we're the same when it comes to, we're husbands, we're fathers, and then we're football coaches. We really don't have much of anything else.